Hey there, pirates. Welcome aboard the Anime No Me channel. Chapter 1141 brought some revelations that, at the very least, completely change how we see Loki. Before, he was just a name, a mysterious figure who ruled Elbaf and had already shown interest in Lola back in Chapter 866. But now, for the first time, we have a real look at the character. And what unfolds is something completely different from what anyone could have imagined. The first clue to what's happening comes from his very condition. I hope for your support to help our crew win, and to do so, you just need to click the thumbs up button, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel. By doing this, you will win an incredible devil fruit, so just comment which fruit you want. Loki, a giant who should be practically invulnerable, is chained, wounded, and on the brink of losing his life. For a being of his stature, this is already an abnormal event. But then comes the most interesting part, Zoro kicking his wound to confirm it wasn't a ruse. That alone tells us a lot. If we look back a few chapters, we've already seen a pattern in One Piece when it comes to extremely powerful figures being portrayed as helpless or captured. Kaido, for example, would always surrender to the Marines and fall from absurd heights because he knew nothing could truly harm him. Chapter 795. So, when Loki appears in this situation, it raises the question, was he really captured by force? Or did he allow this to happen as part of a bigger plan? Hadrian, when saying that Loki is a cunning and cruel villain, only reinforces this possibility. Another thing worth considering is the reaction of Hadrian and the new giant warrior pirates. When they see Loki awake, their shock is immense. They know who Loki really is and what he is capable of. So the fact that they are desperate to stop Luffy from freeing him is already a sign of the real danger he represents. And there's a crucial detail here. Loki wakes up, but he still has a Kairoseki cuff on. This means that even without using any potential devil fruit powers, he is still a massive threat. This is essential because if Loki were dangerous only because of a fruit, the giants wouldn't be so terrified of him while he's still restrained. And that brings us to the true mystery. What is Loki's real power? The first thing that stands out is his size. Luffy, who has dealt with giants before, looks like an ant next to him. This already suggests that Loki may be even larger than the other giants of Elbaf. If we go back to Chapter 866, when Big Mom caused chaos in Elbaf, we saw that the giants have a well-defined hierarchy, and the oldest are considered the strongest. If Loki is the king of Elbaf, then logically, he should be at the top of that scale. But what if his true distinction isn't just his size? When Ripley mentions that fire and lightning are Elbaf's weaknesses, it doesn't seem like a random detail. Oda never introduces information like this without a purpose. The very name Loki already refers to a Norse god associated with tricks and deception, but also with fire. If Loki has a special ability tied to this, it would make sense for him to remain unchallenged in Elbaf. But what if he has something beyond that? If the nickname Ragnir, Iron Thunder, is truly linked to him, his power might involve electricity or some ability that directly interacts with Elbaf's environment. This would fit perfectly with the idea that the only way to contain Loki was to imprison him and keep him away from combat. Another interesting detail is the scene of Frankie and Ripley observing the Atom Tree. The fact that an entire branch was cut off because of a lightning strike already indicates that something or someone was responsible for it. It wouldn't be surprising if Loki was somehow involved in this event, especially considering the chapter's title, An Older Woman. Could there be a connection between this event and Loki's downfall? The fact that Gerd is absent also doesn't seem like a coincidence. Maybe she is the only one who truly understands the danger Loki represents. Or perhaps she is even someone who has faced him before. And then comes the final part of the chapter with Loki standing up. His smile, the shadows on his face, and the visual impact of the scene make it clear that he is not just a helpless prisoner. The way he holds his weapon and Hadrian's reaction indicate that he is about to do something big. Whatever happened to bring him there, it wasn't enough to break him. If he really is this irredeemable villain that Hadrian describes, then this is just the first glimpse of what he is capable of. For now, Chapter 1141 raises more questions than answers. But one thing is certain, Loki is not just another giant. He may very well be one of the most dangerous beings to ever appear in One Piece. And the fact that Luffy was the one who freed him could have massive consequences for the entire story moving forward. If it was already clear from the start that Loki is no ordinary prisoner, now we need to understand his true role in Elbaf's history and what impact he might have on the larger One Piece narrative. Chapter 1141 has already given us some crucial clues. Loki is not just strong, he is feared. And that fear is not limited to the giant warrior pirates. The fact that Ripley didn't provide any concrete explanation for why Loki was imprisoned could be a sign that something much deeper is happening behind the scenes. If Loki were just a corrupt king or a tyrannical ruler, that alone would already be a problem. But it wouldn't justify the sheer terror on Hadruden's and the other giants' faces. The way they desperately try to stop Luffy from freeing him suggests that Loki might be something much worse, someone who represents a real danger to the entire world, not just to Elbaf. Now, let's bring back a detail from Whole Cake Island. In Chapter 866, Big Mom caused a massive disaster in Elbaf as a child, yet the giants still managed to recover. However, we know that something led the giants of Elbaf to isolate themselves from the world and avoid any contact with the world government or other kingdoms. Many believed it was due to the incident with Linlin, but what if there's more to it? What if Loki is one of the main reasons for this isolation? This leads us to another question. Could Loki be connected to the will of the Void Century? If there is any place in the world where secrets of the Void Century could be hidden, it's Elbaf. That's because giants have an absurd lifespan and existed long before many current kingdoms. They have lived long enough to remember things that the world government tried to erase. We already know that giants have been involved in wars in the past, as shown in the Little Garden Arc, but there is very little information about what Elbaf really knows about the Void Century. Here comes an interesting possibility. Loki may have discovered a secret about the will of the Void Century and was imprisoned to prevent it from spreading. This would make sense, especially if we consider that the world government has no control over Elbaf. Elbaf is one of the most powerful nations in the world and could pose a threat to the government. If Loki had knowledge of something that could shake the world's structure, it would explain why he was sealed away. But there is an even more dangerous possibility. What if Loki is an ally of the world government? We know that giants have a history of working for the world government, as seen with the marine giants. If Loki were someone who tried to bring Elbaf under the government's control, that would explain why Hadruden and the others see him as an absolute villain. This would also fit perfectly with the idea that Elbaf was isolated from the world to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. This brings us to a critical point. Loki's release could trigger a war. If Loki is truly as dangerous as he seems, then Luffy freeing him could completely change the course of history. This could turn the giants against Luffy, while at the same time, the world government might see this as an opportunity to intervene in Elbaf. The very fact that Ripley is hiding information suggests that there is something much bigger at play. Now, there's a detail no one can ignore. Shanks has a connection to Elbaf. In Chapter 1079, we saw that Shanks and the red-haired pirates were in Elbaf before the confrontation with Kid. This means Shanks holds some influence over the island. But if he were truly Elbaf's great leader, the new giant warrior pirates wouldn't need Luffy to deal with Loki. This raises a hypothesis. Loki might be a rival to Shanks. If we think about it, the rivalry between Shanks and Blackbeard is clearly being built up for a final confrontation, but that doesn't mean Shanks has no other enemies. If Loki is a tyrannical ruler or someone Shanks tried to stop in the past, it could mean that the red-haired pirate's presence in Elbaf wasn't just a coincidence, but rather an attempt to keep Loki sealed or contained. Now that Loki has been freed, Shanks may be forced to return to Elbaf to settle this matter once and for all. With Loki finally awakened, there are three main scenarios that could unfold. Loki takes over Elbaf again and becomes a central antagonist of the saga. This would force Luffy to face him directly, possibly dividing the island between those who support him and those who reject him. Loki reveals secrets of the Void Century. If Loki knows something about the will of the Void Century or Joy Boy, it could completely change how Elbaf fits into the story. Shanks enters the scene. If Loki is a rival to Shanks, then his release could force the red-haired pirate himself to intervene. No matter what happens, one thing is certain. Loki wasn't introduced for nothing. Oda is clearly setting up something big, and Elbaf could be the stage for one of the most important moments in all of One Piece. Whether as a villain, an ally, or an enigma to be solved, Loki may hold the key to uncovering secrets buried for centuries. Now, we can only wait for the next chapters to see how far this story will go. That was today's content. We hope you liked it and want to share your opinion on the subject. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay amazing.